Jockstrap, no, not that kind of jockstrap, you naughty, naughty fella. No, no, no. This is a musical duo comprising of Georgia, who is in Black Country New Road. Yes, she's in another band too. And I actually stumbled upon these guys in 2019, back when me and my friend Josh went to see Injury Reserve. The supporting act was Jockstrap, not Jockstrapped. Jockstrap, yes, and they were pretty weird. I'm not gonna lie, it totally fit Injury Reserve's whole aesthetic, because when they do live shows, excuse me, they go a bit weird, they go a bit experimental, they flip their actual songs on their head and do some weird stuff, which obviously went into their 2021 album. By the time I get to Phoenix, that was their weirdest and most experimental album to date, but they were already doing those kinds of weirdisms in live shows, and Jockstrap is certainly of that ilk. They are pretty experimental, they are pretty outlandish with the way they approach music. It was just a perfect fit for the show. So since then, I've definitely been interested to see where they'd go. They did drop that EP, which was pretty cool. Very difficult to wrap my head around it, but I definitely knew I liked it, even though I couldn't fully say I loved it because it was just such a head spin of an EP. And now they're here with an album, which is great to see because this is so good. I'm gonna have to start off by saying, like, look, this is not for everyone. You would not really get away with playing this kind of music in front of just anybody and, you know, expecting people to be on board with it, because it's not really that kind of music. Honestly, without an insult to the music or to the duo, it is kind of peak pretentious music in places, to be honest. The way that they kind of meld styles together, the vocals, the sort of like ethereal nature of tracks like Jennifer B, the kind of like glitchiness that pops through sometimes. This is the kind of album you're gonna see, like, you know, get snipped and post on Twitter, and then there's some kind of like, I don't know, Ariana Grande stan account that's like, you'll really listen to this, and it's like the 15 seconds of the song that sounds weird and everything else sounds pretty standard. It's going to be one of those. You've seen it before. They did it with Fiona Apple, they've done it with Rosalia, they've done it with everyone. There's always some album that gets uber positively rated on Metacritic and they have to go find it and just be like, yeah, this is shit, and Lana Del Rey outsold it. It's going to be one of those albums because it's got that kind of pretentious aura to it. Speaking of Rosalia though, I actually thought the track Jennifer B sounded a little bit like a Rosalia track to begin with. That instrumental had a bit of a cartoonish nature to it that I think you'd expect from a Rosalia song. One of the best aspects of this album is tracks like Greatest Hits, where the vocal melodies just feel so on point, and she's able to kind of come through with just some really strange vocalisms that end up sounding really earwormy and catchy without really understanding how or why they got to that stage. It's just such a mind fuck of an album in the way that they do create vocal melodies out of very little. It's so weird. At times, actually, it reminds me of something like the Tom Tom Club would do. You know, something like Genius of Love, where there's just got that kind of like otherworldly feel to it that doesn't sound like most other music. Tracks like Greatest Hits really give off that aura to me. Angst is a fantastic track as well. I love the way it kind of breaks out in some weird glitchiness at the end. It's almost like some kind of like robot story of kind of giving birth to this, maybe not a robot, maybe like an alien story, and like giving birth to this kind of weird creature, and by the end it all just goes wrong. There's some odd lyrics that come through on this track, but the way she's singing over, I think might be like some kind of mandolin or some kind of instrument of that sort of vibe. It really sounds beautiful. I mean, maybe it's some sort of like violin, not violin, maybe it's some kind of harp or something. I'm thinking mandolin, I don't know. I sometimes I don't get these instruments right, I am sorry. But regardless, it sounds so good. And again, with those kind of weird lyrics that I'm just kind of trying to wrap my head around as to what she's referring to, it just makes the whole thing really interesting. I mean, Concrete Over Water, again, musically, I cannot, for the life of me, you know, find ways to praise this, because the way it kind of just bursts into that breakdown, you've got this kind of like chamber pop feel to the song, and then it just like bursts through with some randomness that just feels really eclectic and also purposeful. Like it's random, but it's not random for the sake of being random. I think Deborah's the best way to describe that as well, with the sort of chaotic breakdown of the instrumentation that comes through. It sounds really, really good. It sounds almost like house inspired as well. Yeah, it just really goes to show what they're capable of coming through with on a musical level too. I mean, the final track's got to be the best way to describe that, and it really epitomizes what I'm saying there, really, with the just straight up electronic banger of a track that just has so much going on. It has such a great energy to it. Yeah, it's a cool way to close things out, and kind of could be a sign of what's to come, because it is the most out of place track, but it is also the final track. And I'm sort of wondering, is this the future of Jockstrap? Is the next album that they're going to put out, you know, is it going to be more in line with this? But that's the future. We still got to talk about the present though. We haven't talked about Glasgow, which is probably my favorite track. I think the more I listen to this track, it feels so uniquely inspired that I can't really pinpoint any comparisons, apart from it sounding a little bit at times like a Joanna Newsom song, honestly, with the way the instrumental just feels so perfectly arranged, particularly at the start, and then it kind of goes into that rhythmic guitar section, which makes it sound like it's coming from some sort of coming of age film. Again, some of the lyrics are a bit baffling though, when she says, "I touch myself every time I feel like something's missing from my life," or whatever she says. I mean, I don't know what that means, but it sounds good. But yeah, this sounds so good. Like, it sounds so good from a musical level. The vocals, I actually think she has a really stunning voice. Like, she can hit some really great notes across this whole album, which I think is one of the key selling points, because I reckon this album could actually be pretty mediocre if it wasn't for the fact that she does have such a good voice. I mean, I don't necessarily think having a great voice equals great music. I wouldn't necessarily go as far as saying that. But for the kind of music that this is, and the kind of blending of genres and the weirdness that comes through, I think they get away with some of that sometimes through the beauty of her singing. The only track I'd say it doesn't quite land for is probably Lancaster Court, where the delivery is so muted and the instrumental just feels so flat, particularly compared to what we've had throughout this album. I mean, there's been so many fantastic moments musically. This one just feels really empty, honestly. But yeah, the delivery, actually, the way she's sort of singing, there's that sardonic nature to her voice a little bit, in the same way you would get from a Black Country New Road song, or even maybe a Black Midi song. But I guess that reference point would be there because she is part of that band, so it definitely makes sense. But yeah, I love this album, man. I think it's really entertaining. I think there's just such a great vision that's been executed so well. I think there are other artists out there that have tried this, you know, blending ethereal chamber pop sounds with glitchy electronics in an artsy way, I guess you could say. Like, I've heard it before. This is definitely one of the better versions of it. I think Jockstrap have really nailed what they're trying to set out to achieve here. It feels like the vision has really been, you know, executed so well. Like I say, there's a bit of a pretentious nature to some of it at times, but I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. And even with some of the name drops I did say throughout this review, you know, Black Country New Road, Black Midi, there's definitely a pretentiousness to what they do too. And I've given them really positive reviews, so I can't really give one positive and one not, you know. I think all those artists at the moment are doing really creative things within their genres. And what Jockstrap is doing in the electronic way of blending styles with that, I think this is done really well. It's exciting to see where they could take this as well. I think there's more potential with what they've got here with future releases. I think they could do even more with this. But for now, yeah, I think this is great. I had a great time with this. I think it's an 8 out of 10, honestly. This is one of my favorites of the year so far. I'm having a good time with it. I'm still trying to figure out some of the lyrics and some of the blends of styles. It's weird in places, but it works really well. So yeah, definitely one of my favorites of the year. Definitely an album you should be checking out. I don't think it's going to be for everyone. I think some people out there will really not like this, but I actually think there's a lot to like as well, and it's accessible, which is a good thing too. So yeah, that's my thoughts. Tell me your thoughts in the comments. Would love to see what you guys think. Thank you as always for watching this review. Please subscribe if you haven't already. Would love to hit 4,000, man. I've been stagnating. I've been at a standstill. Let me hit 4,000. Come on, guys. Have a good day and goodbye.